All right, Elly, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm extremely excited to kick off our podcast on what makes top talent in the marketplace today and how to spot those individuals and red flags and areas to focus on in order to have the best performing team in the company. You and I obviously go way back, and I think you've hired me twice during our days at Career Builder. And you won't say this because you're too humble, but I know that you were won multiple trips, multiple presidents clubs, multiple silver sales clubs. Also, I can't remember the amount of times you were area manager of the year. You have hired and promoted some of the best individuals that we know in the marketplace. And you've had a really incredible run leading both individuals and leaders. And so it's really a pleasure to have you on the call today. And I'll pass it to you for a bit of a breakdown of who you are and anything to add. And then we can really start talking through what makes top talent in the marketplace today.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Dan. I've been trying to hire you a third time, but excited that you're doing what you're doing, and would always hire you back in a heartbeat, and very hoping that we can work together in your new business. And but yeah, nice to meet everyone. My name is Elly Hanek. I have over 20 years of experience leading organizations. I have been in the human capital space the entire time over that 20 years, and from the acquisition side of the house for about 17 of those years. And then I'm on the other side of the talent human capital space, upskilling and helping people and companies really train and retain their top talent through skill set enhancement and e-learning and all of the things that help keep people at companies and thriving at companies. So excited to be here and talk talent.
Fantastic. And you hired on multiple teams that you've run, individuals that have gone on to be AEs of the year and have way exceeded their quota and numbers quarterly and annually. And so you're certainly a wonderful person to have on the podcast today. And I would ask, how do you select those individuals? And maybe you can take us from the start of a resume comes across your desk and anything that really sticks out to you, or any red flags for that matter. Mm-hmm. And then, even in your interview process and what your flow's like.
Yeah. I'm typically fairly open as far as first interviews go from a resume. I think there's only so much you can really tell from somebody's resume. Of course, I look for achievement, quota numbers, specific details about how the individual has performed at their last organization. On that first interview, though, I will really want to get to know the person. They call it the airport test. Do you flow with the person? Is this somebody that you feel like has a positive attitude, is fun to talk to, is engaging? Assuming they pass that test, which typically sales people do. I think really breaking down quota attainment. What was their quota? How did they go about achieving it? I really am specific on those types of things because, as you know, anybody can say anything on a resume, right? You don't typically see salespeople say that they were last in their cohort. You don't see them putting that, I was bottom 25% or bottom 50%. But at every sales organization, 50% of people are at the bottom of the ranks. And in my career, I don't think I've ever seen anybody say anything other than they smashed their plan every year. That's why I don't take too much credence into what the resume says. A certain level of professionalism, making sure there's not typing errors, et cetera, or spelling errors, et cetera, so that they present themselves the right way. But I'm very big on the 1 hour first interview. A lot of people may think 30 minutes is enough. But if I'm really serious about truly getting to know somebody's background and understanding if they would be a fit to hopefully work together for years at a company, I really want to get to know them in a deep way and have them get a chance to get to know me, and am I the type of person that they would mesh well with? So those are a couple of things that come top of mind is set that interview for an hour and, give people a chance, but really dig into the specifics, the strategy they had to get to their number.
Perfect. And while we're on the sort of the topic of the actual interview itself, are what would you say your style is? You're obviously doing the hour. Do you like to do kind of the half hour and sort of grill them with questions and divide up their resume per se and sort of make sure they have credibility, and then switch over to allowing questions? Or you have any special tidbits and focus there?
Yeah. I tell them a little bit about myself just to make people comfortable. I think no matter who you are and at what level you're at, still it can be intimidating to be on the other side of an interview. So I think to let people ease in and do a little bit of the talking, talk about what I'm looking for, what the position is like, company culture, because I do see interviews as a two-way street, right? The best candidates are going to want to interview me and my company as much as I'm going to want to interview them. So I think it's fair to set a little bit of the groundwork. And then I usually have them walk me through high level their background and, start me from the beginning. How did you get in? What did you start doing at the beginning of your career? How did you get into this? And then we'll really dig into probably the position or two, depending on the individual, the position that is most relevant to the roles that I'm looking to fill. In my case, it's enterprise sales, software, B2B. So making sure there's something they can do, then talk about. And as part of that, taking that role and getting really specific about, tell me about a time that you knew you were coming in second place and you needed to somehow get the client to change their mind. Walk me through, what did you do? What was the process? Because anybody can say they're really good, but if they can truly break down the details of how they can win a deal, right? You can start to verify, are they a top individual? And what is their overall strategy to making sure that they're the top person at that company or they're overachieving quota?
And so you're really looking to kind of dig into their plan. You've obviously dug into their numbers. And what would you say maybe a couple of your questions that you like to ask to kind of take that next level and get a little bit deeper in the conversation?
Tell me about the company that you recently broke into. Who did you call? How did you break in there? Where did you start? What was your 3 plan A's, as we like to call them back in the career builder day?
Yeah.
So, walk me through that and keeping it open-ended, and then letting them talk about how they think, just trying to get back behind the curtain of what makes that person tick. Do they know how to do it? And can they walk me through what they would do?
Okay. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. And then you can kind of turn it around and say, hey, at our company, this is the level, this is our value proposition. Tell me how you would do it. Like, this is one of the customers or prospects in our open territory. How would you go about breaking down this customer in the retail space? Or, name an industry or vertical. And again, have them walk you through the details of what they do.
And what's the interview process, I guess, at Skillsoft? I mean, is it, are they screened by a recruiter, HR person, and then basically earn a spot and win the phase and move on to you, and they have the hour interview, and then do you have a presentation stage, or what's your step afterwards?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Skillsoft, we have somebody that's doing outreach. I will often consult with them on companies I think that I've seen success in background, or through staying networked through my previous colleagues and all the places that they're at. Just word of mouth of where people, maybe the company culture has changed and what brought people to that organization originally may have them potentially looking to leave. So I tried to arm them to quickly fill the positions as quickly as possible. how can I set my recruiter up for success and say,
Sure.
we're going to go after people at XYZ company and see if you can shake some people loose, because we were remote prior to the pandemic. And so prior to the pandemic, when I was recruiting, it was, hey, I know these companies are in office, and I know people who've gone over there and miss the flexibility of sometimes working from home so they could get to their child's game in time. So I try to be really targeted about the approach. Once we have that kind of plan in place, the recruiter will reach out to individuals, and they'll do the initial screen, provide notes, and then if I see that person's a fit and the recruiter really recommended them, then I will set up a call. Generally, we do. I know I said I like the hour-long calls. I'll purposely block myself for an hour in case the call will go long, but just also to protect time if we were able to cover everything, and not to make the candidate feel bad about themselves that we only took 30 minutes of an hour. We set it up where the recruiter says, hey, block an hour of your time. Typically 99% of the time, this goes 30 minutes. If you can block an hour, it should go 30 minutes, but give yourself a 30-minute buffer. And that way, if the call is going very well and there's a lot of traction, that, we're being fair with their time as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then how about some red flags? You schedule 30 minutes, they've got to earn the hour, right?
Yes.
Yes. What makes you kind of say, I'm 20 minutes into this and I'm really ready to be done with this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the biggest thing, I can think of one that I recently had done where they showed up, I would say 4 minutes late. It was enough to offer forgiveness the first time. But I purposely kept that one 30 minutes. And I said, you know what, we need to follow up. And they were late again. Oh. And I was like, okay, I can, everybody has things that come up. But to have that happen, you're 0 for 2. And it was a shame because the candidate I really liked, they were gregarious and fun and they had the background. But that was, if you can't put your best foot forward in an interview, that's a big red flag. Another candidate that I think of off the top of my head couldn't tell me what their quota was at their last company. And that tells me they weren't that engaged. Like anybody that really wants to be number one in sales is dreaming about, how are they going to get their number? How are they going to work backwards? If their quota is $1 million and the deal size is $80,000, like how am I going to get those 15 deals to exceed my number? And they just know it to the T. I've never met a good salesperson that wasn't constantly trying to break that down. So that's another red flag. I'd say also the level of passion, that fire that somebody has. I really, really look for that when I'm hiring people, because I want them to want it so bad that I can't possibly want it more than they want it. And I want it really bad for people. I really do want people to win. And I just thrive on helping people be successful and helping them, not just at their career for when they work for me, but at other points in their career, and keeping in touch with people that worked for me in the past. So I just really like the people that they want to be helped. They want to learn. And if you bring to the table sort of that desire, sales is a methodology and you can teach it. And that's one thing we learned from our career builder days that I think they set us up so well for, is the training, and people were successful because they were trained. And I believe, I believe I can train anybody that wants to be trained. Nice.
Yeah. Do you remember back in the day, we would go and meet candidates and, we would check with, I think it was like the 9th floor, and there was reception on there, and we're like, did they show up on time? We kind of got some feedback previously about sort of their interaction, like how were they with you? Did they treat you well? And that's really hard to do in a virtual world today. Yeah. And are there things outside of just, beyond the resume, beyond the interview, that you see candidates do that really stick out to you where you're like, oh, that's a little outside the box and really impressed me?
Yeah, I think a candidate that not only did the research about myself in the background, but was able to reference it. And I can't say that that didn't impress me, that they were able to tie it back together with like, oh, I saw your LinkedIn recommendations and I was so impressed with what people were saying and the types of leader you are. That those are things that don't go unnoticed. The thank yous after the interview, I think, is also a nice touch. And I've had people where they weren't a fit for my position, but because of the thank you note and the continued follow-up, I was able to point them to a different part of our organization where they were a really good fit and they were able to get hired. So I think people always tell you about the initial thank you, right? But the follow-up a week after can sort of, we're all so busy, we all get so many emails, it can kind of remind you of like, oh shoot, I was going to recommend them to my colleague, or there's some other way I can help this individual, even if it isn't at this moment on that team. It just leaves a good taste, and people, hopefully want to help other people. And so give yourself the best foot forward to be able to do that, or have somebody do that for you.
What would you say makes a really good follow-up email?
I would say, obviously, thanking somebody for their time, but referencing how they can help you in the role, and hopefully referencing something you talked about. And if they asked a question about, who's your perfect candidate, I recommend a question like that, like, who do you envision being the perfect person, if there was a perfect person for the role, and then referencing that information in the thank you, so that you're tying it back, that here's why I believe, I can help you with the things that are pain points for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
There was a leader recently that I was speaking with, and they were explaining to me that individuals that really stuck out to them also did pre-emails and just said, hey, just confirming our time, really excited, here's what I bring to the table. But it's also such an art because it has to be short and sweet. They can't write a book. So I think that's really challenging, but that's something at least I noticed that felt like really stuck out.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Talk to some top people.
Yeah, that's smart.
Is there any other kind of things that stick out to individuals when you interview them? I know a lot of leaders I've spoken with are sometimes looking for athletes, a collegiate athlete, somebody that's got that fire and are really competitive, but it's obviously kind of hard to spot in a short interview. But any other items that kind of come to mind?
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't have to be an athlete, but somebody that tried to be the best or sought out being the best at whatever they were passionate about. So I know tons of people in sales that were really into theater, and because they're confident, the presence, the type of presentation skills come from that type of background. So maybe they were seeking out opportunities to be in plays and memorizing lines, or they were state band champions, or it can come in a lot of forms. But anything that somebody's passionate about and they have the drive to focus and really be the best. And so, yeah, I think athletics comes to mind. Certainly if you've coached a lot of really great athletes, and the failure and the ability to fail and get back up can be very, very helpful in a sales role, and not, getting discouraged because you get beat up every day, and some days you come back victorious, other days you come back a little bit tattered, and just the ability to say, hey, I'm going to pick myself up, and I'm positive and I'm optimistic, and next time it's going to be different. Learn from those mistakes.
Nice.
Yeah.
What I found really interesting as we've shifted to this COVID world and work from home, which we've all been doing, back in our prior life at Career Builder, I felt like the extroverts really stood out. And it seems today with all the technology and all the moving parts in the process that a lot of the introverts are actually really accelerating.
Mhm.
I love that you mentioned the people with a theater background, not that they're necessarily introverts, but it's a little bit different than what we were used to previously in our hiring phase during our Career Builder days.
Yeah.
um, do you have any special ways of spotting introverts that can really stick out, and maybe somebody that's not so boisterous, or
Yeah.
that they don't seem to bring that fire, but then you can really spot, wow, they'll be a tremendous addition to my
Yeah.
team.
Yeah. I think intensity levels, right? You can be, I probably would be on the lower end of the gregarious side. There's gregarious salespeople that walk into a room and are the center of attention. I would not fall into that category. I'm a little bit more, probably a little bit more introverted. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. But just the intensity level when they start talking about how important it is to win, and have they ever been behind their quota? What did they do? What, you know, I don't know how, like, how you have them walk you through the specifics of, like, okay, you wake up, how are you going to attack your day? What are the things? How are you spending your time? What are you how you strategize when something you're doing isn't working? And
Mhm.
just, again, try to understand how they think. I think that's the biggest area that um, will help you, no matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert. Like, either way, you have to be able to break down a problem and think about it from so many different angles, because so many times in sales, you go down with one, go down one path that you think is going to work, and you get sidelined by it and it doesn't work. And if you're stuck then, and you don't have critical thinking skills, right, and you can't think through the problem, or talk to somebody, and network with somebody of, like, hey, how would you solve this? I've tried this, and this. What would you try next?
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if you're introvert or extrovert, but somebody that cares and is going to critically think through it until they get to an answer that works.
That seems like a really common theme for you, is like when you're deep under pressure and you're behind on your number, like what's your plan? What's your action
Yeah.
in order to come back from that? And, I
Yeah.
think that's like a phenomenal way to sort of understand an individual and how they think. And I'm sure that helps lead to really good candidates joining you and your firm.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's fun to win. I think it's fun to be part of a culture that is a winning culture. And, I think everybody thrives in that no matter where they are. So I'm always trying to create a team that is known to be the best, with the best individuals who are the most promotable. And and you get an environment where people are, oh, everybody's winning. It's just such a fun place to be. You don't have to worry about um, people, not making money, right? If they're winning, they're helping support their families. It's fun to wake up and win. It's just so much of the job, in my opinion, of a leader is, how do I set my team up to be successful? And that way, just like a restaurant owner is only as good as their worst meal, I think a leader is only as good as their least winning rep. And how do they bring that person up so that, everything rises to the top, and that everybody's learning something from each other. And when I think back to our team, when we, when the times we worked together, is everybody helped each other, right? Everybody was good at different things, and people didn't come to me for all of the answers, and it was pretty distributed. Everybody was
Mhm.
equal in all of the skill sets they brought to the table, and they've all, gone on to do such amazing things that um, the network is that much bigger because of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I would say you were one of the best at that, at like building cohesive teams. I know when I was leading teams, that was a huge struggle for me. I just wanted to hire, all the LeBrons that were out there. And
Yeah.
if you put five LeBrons on a team and they all want the ball, it really, it becomes a lot of this. And,
Yeah.
so how do you, last question for you, how do you sort of build around that, build a whole team with all these different skill sets where the culture is created that everybody can trust and rely on each other and kind of fall into if they're the point guard or the leading scorer or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, going back to your talk about interviews, I think really finding out what they love doing the most, right? And if you can get people doing what they love the most and highlighting their skills in that area, I think that's a great way to get people using their strengths to then help other people, right? And saying, hey, I want to identify, I want to ask, hey, Dan, what do you love doing? If you love doing presentations, then great. Let's hear about the latest presentation you did for XYZ customer, because one, something you love doing, and two, it can help all of the other people on the team. And it's fun to use your strengths, right? I mean, there's plenty of focus on what you're not good at or what you could get better at, and there's a time and place for that. But in a public opportunity like a team meeting or a team get together, I think, how do you raise people up and have them complement each other with what they love doing and what they're good at?
That's great. You're spot on. You really nailed that at Career Builder. I remember you doing that, and that was phenomenal. Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been, of course, fantastic. You know, I was thinking about you the other day, and I'm like, Elly's probably interviewed, I don't know, like 1,000 people plus over your career, and hired, I can't even think of how many people you've hired. And so it's a real honor to have you as a guest today. And this was extremely insightful, some fantastic tidbits, and I can't thank you enough. And,
honored to be on the podcast with you, and can't wait to share all your successes. Get to see you the next time I'm in Chicago.
Absolutely. Anytime. We'd love to see you. All right, Elly. Well, thank you again. Take care.
All right. Talk soon.